Last week, as way of introduction to the series, I'm using from the writings of C.S. Lewis, who spoke on niceness. My name is Pastor Jim Wallace. I'm from Staff Roads International Church in South Attleboro, Mass. And this week I would like to talk about being kindly. Being kind is not a new encouragement for me. As you know, many times I've encouraged you to care about people near you, care about your friends, your family, your neighbors. And, well, anyone with any level of love can certainly care about those people. But we continue to see folks attacking and abandoning lifelong friendships and even family relationships here in recent years. And it seems to me that we all could use a little encouragement in this department of being kindly. C.S. Lewis wrote this in Mere Christianity. Though Christian charity sounds like a very cold thing to people whose heads are full of sentimentality, though it's quite distinct from affection, yet leads to affection. The difference between a Christian and a worldly man is that the worldly man has only affections or likings, and the Christian has only charity. The worldly man treats certain people kindly because he likes them. The Christian tries to treat everyone kindly and finds himself liking more and more people as he goes on, including people he could not even imagine himself liking at the beginning. He continued to address this and in talking about spiritual law, and he looked at the Germans and their treatment of the Jews in World War II, and he went on to say this: the same spiritual law works terribly in the opposite direction. The Germans perhaps at first ill-treated Jews because they hated them. Afterwards they hated them much more because they had ill-treated them. The more cruel you are, the more you will hate. The more you will hate, the more cruel you'll become. And so the vicious circle is forever. Jesus himself was no stranger to hanging out with interesting folks in his time, and he took a great deal of criticism for that. So why did he? Why was he so concerned about these questionable characters that he would risk his even reputation over being with them? Wasn't he here to reach people, to influence them to do the right thing, to living the right way, to be with people that would maybe influence people at the top versus people maybe at the bottom? Yet he was accused of hanging out with the likes of fishermen, the demon-possessed, prostitutes, tax collectors, very marginalized people, adulterers, and I can go on and on. And yet when people asked him how to live, he started out with what you'd expect, and it ended it always with loving your neighbor. He said this: you will love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your strength and all your mind. And that you'd expect that, right? And then he said this: and your neighbor as yourself. In Matthew 19:19, honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So right after mom and dad, your neighbor, right after loving your God with all your heart, loving your neighbor as you would yourself. Completing this thought with more from C.S. Lewis: good and evil both increase and compound interest. That is why the little decisions you make, and I make every day, are of such infinite importance. The smallest good act today is the capture of a strategic point from which a few months later you will be able to go on to victories you never dreamed of. And apparently the trivial indulgence in lust or anger today is the loss of a ridge or a railway line or a bridgehead from which the enemy may launch an attack otherwise impossible. Can we start today at the beginning of this week, starting with the smallest little acts, the smallest little thing, the smallest little effort, and that's going to change the way we love our neighbor and the way we're kindly towards them and kindly to other people. Just the smallest little act, that's all I'm asking you to do. Incline yourself to it. And maybe this week we can be more kindly and we can react differently in 2 or 3 weeks from now, where we go from being kindly to being loving to those people you never thought it was possible to. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week for another installment with the thoughts from C.S. Lewis. Blessings to you. Thanks for listening.